Enlightenment. Palms together. And good morning to 조 교무님.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's my second Dharma talk in here. And it is the first week of April. And in Won Buddhism, April, we call it the Month of Enlightenment. Because 107 years ago, our founding master Sotaesan was enlightened to the truth of the universe in April 28th. And he described his enlightened truth as the truth of Ilwonsang, the one circle image behind myself. And Won Buddhism is originated from his enlightenment. So in other words, like without his enlightenment, there would be no Won Buddhism and no Won Dharma Center and, no Won Buddhist service and no Won Buddhist teachers. Maybe now Reverend Yu becomes like Father Yu or Sister Ginger, like that. So everything couldn't be happened if he wasn't enlightened. And about 20 years ago, when I was a preliminary minister, I really wanted to attain the same great enlightenment that Master Sotaesan attained. And still, I'm eager to do it. And it has been the biggest motivation that I walk on the path of one Buddhist minister. However, as you know, it is not an easy job. Even enlightened masters and teachers seem to have a different perspective about enlightenment. For example, someone says that it is nothing special, and each and every moment is the moment of enlightenment. And the other master says that it is very big and special moment in which a big convergence suddenly happened. So for me, though I'm not enlightened yet, I have my standard of enlightenment, and it seems very clear to me. Since my Dharma teacher is Master Sotaesan, I follow his instruction. And in our principle book, he taught us how to check out if one is enlightened or not. In our principle book, in part 2, Doctrine, chapter 1, the principle of Ilwonsang, the red book, and he told us how to check out the enlightenment. So let us check it out together. He said that when one is enlightened to the truth of this one song, there follows the awareness that, this is important, the entire universe is one's own property. So he said that if someone is enlightened, he or she will know that the entire universe is your own property. Do you think like that? And he keeps going on. He said that this sentence is what I like the most. The one song, if you are enlightened, all things in the universe are not two, but one, although everything has its separate name. And he told us several more sentences, but I cannot cover it right now, so let me give one more. If you are enlightened, the principle of birth, old age, illness, and death is like the change of spring, summer, fall, and then to winter. And those are the example of the standard of enlightenment. So now you have listened to the standard, and do you think that you understand what is said, or you think that you're enlightened? Yeah, you don't need to answer. So for me, those Dharma words are my standard of enlightenment. It gives me the direction of enlightenment, but at the same time, it is a standard of my practice as well. For example, when I have a conflict with other person, I remind those Dharma words to myself that all things in the universe are not two, but one, although they have different names. And then I ask myself, we are not two, then why do I hate that person? Of course, it doesn't always work. Sometimes I'm like, okay, all right, I'm done. We cannot be one, I cannot accept it. I'd rather be separated from that person like that. However, in that kind of a moment, in the deep status of my mind, I still keep reminding myself why I and that person are not two. So that is how I utilize Master Sotaesan's enlightenment in my daily life. And I haven't had a special or dramatic moment of life exchanging experience so far, or it might have been happening so gradually that I cannot even recognize it by myself. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting what Master Sotaesan said in the scripture book, but sometimes I feel like it is too far away that I cannot attain to it in this lifetime. Anyway, no matter whether I'm enlightened or not, as long as I keep trying to follow the teaching, my practice, and my life as one Buddhist worth, I think. Even though I'm not enlightened, I can still practice because I think that attaining to the realm of truth and applying the truth in my daily life can be different matters. For example, one of the things I play for fun is solving a Rubik's Cube. So I think that solving a Rubik's Cube is somewhat similar to the process of practice. So when I had the Rubik's Cube at the first time, so I didn't know how to solve it. So I tried to figure it out by myself, and I just wanted to create my own patterns, not depending on the pre-existing algorithms. However, just right after 3 days I purchased it, I just gave it up, I realized that even though years of time, that kind of a long time had given to me, I realized that it seemed impossible to figure it out by myself. So after I realized that, what I did was that I learned the algorithm on YouTube. And then I could solve it. So to solve a 3x3 very basic Rubik's Cube, I needed to practice and memorize about 10 algorithms. Then, when I completely mastered it, I could solve 4x4, 5x5, and 6x6, and even 7x7. So I'm pretty much sure that if I tried 8x8, so I could do it. Because solving a bigger Rubik's Cube doesn't require to learn the whole new algorithms. Just the basic 10 algorithms are enough to solve 3x3 or 7x7. And it worked. So I learned a lesson from this experience. It is that although I don't even understand the principle completely, still I can apply the algorithms and it will bring the same result of success as long as I apply them in exact and correct way. I think the same is true in our practice. So though I don't fully understand what Master Sotaesan was enlightened, just following his teaching exactly as he explained is enough for progressing my practice. So as I learn algorithms of Rubik's Cube one by one, then I would learn his teachings one by one as exactly as he meant. Then I believe that my practice will progress naturally while I keep trying to follow his teaching. And I would like to introduce one algorithm of Dharma that I'm working on for a long time. And one of his teachings that I have kept in my mind for a long time is the fifth item of the essential dharmas of daily practice. It is, let us turn life of resentment into life of gratitude. So I knew that I am very vulnerable to this part. So a couple of decades ago, I decided to take it as my most important algorithm of Dharma that I need to keep working on. He said, let us turn resentment into gratitude, and that seems very simple words, but it is really hard to execute. And Master Sotaesan emphasized us live a life of gratitude so many times in the scripture. And let me read the Dharma verse regarding it. He said, even if one is confronted with a case in which one is forced to bear a resentment, one is to find a source of grace, and by changing resentment into gratitude, one may be able to requite graces. In the past, I have been a Won Buddhist from my mother's womb, so my whole lifetime I have been a Won Buddhist. But in the past, I used to think that this is a too idealistic philosophy because we even miss or forget graces around us in our daily life. But what the Master Sotaesan, asked us is that even in case of resentment, we need to find a source of grace and changing resentment to gratitude. I used to have a pessimistic way of thinking. I guess it is because that was originated from my poor childhood life, because I had to go through poverty and very unstable household circumstances. So I confess that I lived a life of resentment even after I became a preliminary minister, like 20-something years ago. I was still comparing myself to others' life, and at that time, I thought that the world is basically unfair and unreasonable. However, recently I found myself that I am no longer pessimistic or resentful. Rather, I found myself that I was trying to find a source of grace even in resentful situations. It was not a sudden moment of conversion, but it just took me a very long time to melt away my karmic negative energy. And when I completed it, I could accept Master Sotaesan's teaching as it is. It was interesting because it is still the same sentence. Let us turn a life of resentment into gratitude. I recited it so many times in my lifetimes, but before, I think I melted my karma. I couldn't accept it. But once I completed it, I could accept it. I looked at myself. So how was it possible? And I think it was because I repeatedly tried. And also my life has been exposed to Master Sotasan's teaching and people practicing it, my Dharma friends. So in the morning meditation session, we recite the essential dharmas of daily practice. And I have been a prime minister and minister for 20-something years, so it's about 8,000 times. I recited it, keep reciting it. I don't know from when I could accept it, but if you do something like 8,000 times continuously, then impossible thing can be possible. So someday, I recited it with kind of sleepy mind because it's 6:30 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes I was sleepy, and sometimes I did it with my mind wandering around. But someday, I really contemplated that Dharma words, applying it to my actual life event I was going through. So I spoke out those words repeatedly. I believe that it purified my mind and spirit little by little. And now those Dharma words I can feel that those Dharma words are deeply rooted in my mind. So now whatever resentful situation I face with, I can apply this simple and powerful algorithm of Dharma in my life. Still, from time to time, a resentment arises in my mind, but I know that what kind of algorithm I should apply on it, so it would not be a problem. So following those algorithms of Dharma will lead me to a great enlightenment one day, or at least it will keep me on the right track of a practice. So since it is the month of enlightenment, so I would recommend you all to find your own algorithms of Dharma that will progress your practice. Then it would be very nice. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. It is very refreshing, the phrase algorithm of Dharma. So